Not knowing your history is like being a leaf and not knowing it's part of a tree. Around the turn of the century, people became sort of interested in the site because they found stuff here. You know, things were coming up out of the ground. This town was attacked by the French in 1687, and actually French soldiers exhumed some of the burials that were here because they knew Seneca people buried their family members with objects. So they did that right away. In 1687, people were excavating. They weren't archaeologists at the time, they were just grave robbers. So we're interested in historic preservation. That is the memory of what took place here, trying to provide the best and most truthful story about the past.
The work, life, ethics of the site, they really go hand in hand with the traditional way of life. I demonstrate basket making. That's one of the things I do here, and I have been teaching other native folks to do this the traditional way, from pounded log to finish weaving it. So this is a gathering basket. It's made of black ash splints. The spokes, the uprights are the spokes, the weavers, the whipper. The rim of this is made from white ash, same family. This is a strong basket. It's meant to last years and years, hopefully decades.
Trying to be as honest to people about what was taking place in the past means that you have to be very responsible when you replicate the past. We spend a lot of time studying and learning as much as we can before we kind of go forward and try to replicate something. We really focus on sort of three areas of study. Certainly archaeology, if possible, is one. And maybe it's objects that came directly from the ground here. But some of the objects that we know people produced here really don't have an archaeological example that we can go by. Sometimes it's only a fragment of an example. We rely on imagery in some cases, so illustrations or drawings which were done at the time, which might help us provide clues for what an object might be. Maybe it's some kind of an ornament that somebody's wearing or a style of clothing. And then lastly, we rely on oral history. So these are the kind of like basic understandings that were passed on, you know, from generation to generation, and those understandings can help us even kind of discover clues to the past. This is called a tump line, or a burden strap, and it's a fairly pedestrian object. It's designed to carry things, right? They would maybe hang a cradle board from their back, and the woman would use this strap across the hairline to hold things. And that's, you know, that could be accomplished with anything really, but Seneca people chose to decorate them and make them as beautiful as they could. And so it sort of becomes a vector for artistic expression. I had to just look at original objects, study them very carefully, you know, under a microscope, and sort of with some practical understanding already of twining, and some of the work that was done maybe around 1900 by some anthropologists helped me to really kind of suss out the process. Our visitors, they're coming in with a range of pre-existing notions about people in general, Indian people, Native Americans, you know. And, you know, on one end of the spectrum, there's the fullest, you know, archaic, stereotypical, sort of Disney-fied impression of Native people. And when they come here, they're expecting feathers and bells and things like that, right? We see that every day when people come in and they're referencing films as their, you know, their source of understanding history. And then on the other hand, we have highly educated visitors who are coming. We have local colleges come in, and they want us to help teach their class and students a little bit about archaeology, a little bit about history, a little bit about material culture, you know. So that, I mean, our visitation ranges. When we have sort of this low information visitor, we're really working from a real basic perspective. And in very simple terms, my goal for that person is to understand that A, there are still living Native Americans, and B, that we don't dress in feathers and beads, you know, and then C, sometimes we do.
Studying history is so important for people today, and it's especially important for Native people. Because if you talk to Native people across the country, a lot of them can't tell you about the history. They can't tell you about how life was like for their ancestors growing up, or their different cultural traditions and other things like that. So it's important to learn about them, because history, along with culture and language, gives you a sense of identity. It gives you a much deeper understanding of what it means to be a Native person today, because you can have that sort of perspective.
Everyone, I think, in their lives, you know, is looking for a way to make a difference and a way to be a sort of productive person. And for a long time, I thought art was going to be my pursuit. But, you know, I married a woman and I started to have children, and these are Haudenosaunee kids. As I realized that I needed to take my job seriously so that they have a correct understanding of their past. So I wanted to make this place, you know, the best it can be for my children, so that they have the best understanding of their past, and it will sort of buoy them into their future.